afternoon. Good morning, Wayne. How are you? Wayne,
Morning, guys. How you
thank
doing?
thank you for making the walk yesterday. That was fun.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, it's good to see those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. I was, of course, as soon as you arrived, I was over at the pissoir at the porta potty. So
Oh,
I was missing in action. You guys are blowing up my phone. Where'd you go? And I'm like, nature called, man. And then you were there, and I got back. I assume the boys who said that they were big fans of yours had a few good questions to ask you about, calling NFL games and the stuff that you deal with.
yeah, we had a nice visit. Yeah, it was good. And what a beautiful morning.
Oh, God, yeah. The weather is fantastic. Wayne Larrivee is brought to you by Steam Fitters. Local 601. Learn more by visiting steam601.org and by the National Fire Sprinklers Association. Visit them at nfsa.org. All right, how much of it was real and how close do you think that comeback was from happening? Because Butchie didn't think that they had a chance to win the game. I think he's crazy, Wayne. I thought at 28-22, the pucker factor was at a 10 out of 10 and then a real shot of actually pulling this thing off.
Yeah, and then the two turnovers in the fourth quarter really that really hurt them. That really killed them. I thought they had a shot. I really did. I thought they had a nice shot. They made a great comeback. They seemed to have a handle on what the Vikings were doing. I don't know if, you'd have to ask Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores if they kind of took the foot off the gas pedal when they were leading 28-7 and 28-7 going into the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. It was still, I thought the real chance the Packers had were if they came out in the second half, that first drive of the third quarter, score a touchdown. Now it's a ball game. But unfortunately, they weren't able to get that done, and nobody scored in the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, it was a real daunting task, but they almost pulled it off. And I think a lot of it was real. I mean, I think that all of a sudden Jordan Love got into a zone there. He started throwing the football much better than he did in the first half, and his receivers started making plays. Defensively, they dialed up a great blitz with Keyshawn Nixon off the edge. Edger and Cooper made the recovery on the sack and strip sack. And so, they scored a touchdown a couple of plays later. So they made some things happen in that ball game. And I think just not quitting was the thing that stuck with me.
Yeah.
I just thought, this is kind of the way they were last year. I mean, they lost 4 in a row. They were like 2-5. And I'm thinking they're going into the dumpster. And they just kept playing. And I think that's the nature of this group.
Do you think they came out flat, Wayne? And because we talked about it early at 6:00, and it's tough to figure out what flat means. But to me, they just didn't look like they came out ready to play. And I think because Addison was so wide open on that first touchdown, and it just looked sloppy.
They were up against it with coverage, and they were trying to figure out what to do with that because they didn't have Jair Alexander or
Correct.
Carrington Valentine. Arguably, certainly Alexander is their best cover corner. You could argue Carrington Valentine's their second best cover corner. You could make that argument.
Yeah.
So I think they were struggling with that a little bit. They were struggling with getting pressure on Sam Darnold. That was what they had to do, especially up the middle where Minnesota's offensive line is kind of weak. I was surprised they didn't get more pressure on Darnold throughout the ball game. And then, offensively, you could understand, the quarterback might be shaking off some rust. Larry McCarron made a great point in the pregame. He said, you can practice and shake off rust, which he did last week. But there is no way to duplicate in practice the speed and the ferocity of a game. And so that was going to take some time, and it did. But I thought in that regard, did they come out flat? No. I'm going to say this, and I told you guys this last week. There were a lot of teams around the league going into last week's game that were playing good. Minnesota was playing great at a whole different level. That was the Minnesota I saw on tape in the first half of the game in Green Bay yesterday.
Yeah. All right, let me get your thoughts on kickers. Butchie and I have differing views on kickers. Mine is much more blasé that they don't really matter unless you got maybe the worst guy in the league. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. And there's only about 3 special guys out there. But even the special guys, which we've accounted for as being in no particular order, Tucker, Butker, and the freak in Dallas. Other than those 3 guys, they're all kind of interchangeable. My feeling is they don't matter unless you got the worst one. I don't know if we have the worst one, but we got a kid who's struggling. Butchie is much more of a kicker stand who really, really, really believes you got to get the right one. I'm afraid that Narv Dog is on thin ice. Do you think he'll survive this week? Gut feeling.
Boy, better question for
Goody.
Gutekunst and Wayne Larrivee. I'll say that much.
I know.
I don't know. I mean, the coach expressed confidence, and I think, but that's
He
Matt
has to.
felt he had to say that. He expressed confidence that he'd put him out there, and based on what he's seen in practice and that type of thing. But yeah, 37-yard field goal, got to make it. Even a 49-yard field goal, 48-yard, whatever it was. And I understand, and John Kuhn was telling us the wind on the floor of the stadium was swirling. It was a factor, there's no doubt. But those are kicks you've got to make. And, in the final analysis, now, had he made those kicks, would the game have gone the way it did? It could have. It maybe not.
Might have, but yeah,
I think it probably would.
You can't retroactively. Everything happens, force, reaction, push, counter push, based on score and time and everything else. That's what we saw on the final drive when it was a 6-point game by the Vikings. Suddenly they were willing to take chances and make big strikes to Jefferson that put him in range for that go-ahead field goal, for the 9-point field goal.
Yeah, exactly. So, it would have played out a little bit differently. And I guess in the final analysis, you said that, well, they lost by 2, but they missed 2 field goals. So that's what cost them.
Yeah.
Not really.
Right. Like my buddy married the Walmart heiress. He's worth millions now. And it's because I didn't go to lunch with him that day on Tuesday when she was there. I could have married her. Well, maybe
you should
not.
have. What the heck? Go to lunch day. What were you doing? I mean, your golf game's horrendous. I mean, crying out loud, you should have gone to dinner.
You can't retroactively say, if only had I done this. So in all your years of covering and calling NFL games, how important are kickers in your opinion, Wayne?
Very important, because the game often comes down to a single possession in the NFL. It's almost always hanging in the balance in the fourth quarter. And yeah, I think a kicker is important.
Okay.
We have kind of, in Green Bay for 30 years, had great kickers. Chris Jackie, Ryan Longwell, Mason Crosby. Basically 30 years of great kickers. And, now we're kind of seeing what, this is what the rest of the league goes through.
Okay.
Wayne, when you watched that second half of this defense, there were some areas of concern that I saw. I thought Minnesota was running the ball pretty good against them, but they still found ways to get turnovers. Are we going to see this defense kind of what we've seen through the first 4 games, maybe give up some of that run? Maybe those linebackers are a little bit weaker than what they need to be, but they're still going to be able to make good plays and turn the ball over?
I think so. I think this is a turnover kind of defense. Against the run, Minnesota invested 34 rushes, 120 yards, 3.5 average. That's not bad. 17 was the long, 1 touchdown. That's not bad run defense overall. I think what stood out to me is the fact that they weren't able to get as much consistent pressure on Sam Darnold. And I was hoping that would be a factor in this ball game. You had to get Darnold off his spots. You had to get him uncomfortable. In the first half, they struggled to do that. But on the other side, here's another thing, guys. The Packers put the ball up, 54 times? The Vikings came in leading the universe in sacks with 16, and they got 1 sack in the game. Now, they did get 10 quarterback hits, but only 1 sack. And the other thing with the Packers, I think, on the quarterback hits, which matter, it tells you what your pass rush was doing. The Packers had, as far as quarterback hits go, just 3, in addition to the 2 sacks.
Yeah. There's some stuff to love about the game. We talked about Tucker Kraft and his touchdown. Talk about him as you see him out there. He really is. He does everything. He says he wants to model his game after Mark Bavaro of the Giants. That's going old school right there. It's a great comp, though, because he's a rough and tumble guy and loves to block guys out of the picture. But that's a bright spot right there. Your thoughts on Tucker Kraft as he continues to emerge?
Yeah, I mean, they targeted him 9 times. He had 6 catches. The touchdown catch, the stuff he does, the blocking and all that, as you pointed out. I mean, he's just become a consummate total package at tight end. I still think there's a place for Musgrave in this offense. I think there's a lot of 12 personnel that they can run, and Musgrave can take the middle of the field like a receiver, like a downfield wide receiver. And I think that's something that they're going to continue to work on and develop. They've got to get Musgrave involved. He is not the blocker, obviously, that Tucker Kraft is, but he's a guy who can get you deep into the seam.
Yeah, they lost every challenge, basically. It felt like one of those nights at the blackjack table where all you could do was just lose to the dealer. Were they at any point screwed by replay, though, do you think? Do you think any of those were unfair overturns or upholds?
Oh gosh, I'm
I
trying
don't
to
think
think.
so.
There were so darn many of them. I don't think we kept looking at it and saying, "Well, boy, maybe they won't have enough to overturn," but they certainly were able to slow things down. I was surprised the McKinney interception. I thought they were going to overturn that. That's the
And
one.
that's what I thought too.
I did too. We looked at each other. There's no way.
Ooh.
And I thought they didn't, Wayne, because they had already overturned back-to-back calls that went against the Packers. That was part of the reason LaFleur was so hot when the timeout wasn't given quick enough for him. I could understand the frustration. I felt like they're like, all right, LaFleur is really going to be mad. Like, he might slash our tires. I'm not saying he will, but, somebody might.
But Matt was 100% wrong on that,
let-
right, Wayne?
Yeah, what were your thoughts on the LaFleur penalty? I mean, it's ticky-tack, but it's in the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the officiating crew. There were several times when coaches tried to get timeouts, and these guys were like, they didn't hear anything.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't really.
It was a rough day for the crew, is what you're trying to get. I mean, I thought it was.
Now, according to Football Zebras, they said that if you feel like you didn't get your timeout quick enough, the crew will huddle up and sometimes put a couple seconds back on the clock. What I didn't know was that because he had called for a timeout, then got the flag, that he was required to use the timeout anyway. He had already ordered it like room service, and he couldn't return the timeout because he got the flag. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So that's what felt stupid, to both get a penalty that hurt him, that could have hurt him badly, although he got bailed out, and then to have to take one of your last two timeouts.
Yeah.
But he had already ordered it. That's the problem.
That's the problem there. Yeah. And the penalties were a problem in the first half, certainly for the Packers. A lot of penalties in that first half of play. I thought they cleaned it up in the second half. They didn't have quite as many, obviously. And, that helped. But, the penalties are a problem. Red zone was a problem going into this game. The Packers were 4 out of 5 red zone. So, there was some improvement there.
Yeah. The onside kick late, that's our first one under the new rules. You have to be trailing. It has to be the final 4 minutes of the game, and you have to declare. And once you declare, as you sent it down to Kuhn on the sideline, he said, you can't undeclare an onside kick. So I was chatting with Mike, my buddy, about should they pooch it, maybe, like to try to pooch and scramble and recover, because it's hard to recover these straight onside. They had Whalen drop kick it.
Yeah,
Did they explain what that was about?
I don't know. That's a good question. They must have felt that, and I had not seen that, and I'm sure they've done it in practice and all, but they must have felt that this was their best way to get that, the ball to hit and bounce up high.
Except it didn't bounce. It skidded.
Yeah. And so
they didn't get the bounce they needed.
I'm not sure what Richie Bisaccia was looking for there, but it was interesting to see a drop kick. I haven't seen that in I don't know how long.
I know.
I mean,
bringing
I
back
didn't
the
even know
old
what
school
to call
stuff.
it. I mean, seriously, I didn't even think to call it a drop kick, but
That's right.
I just hadn't seen it in a long time. And so, but it unfortunately didn't work. It's really hard. The onside kick thing, they've got to take another look at that next March, because, there's just no percentage hardly of recovering that thing, it seems like. I don't know.
Would you be in favor of the fakey 4th and 15 fake setup? You'll get 15 yards, you get the ball back?
I don't know. I mean, it probably would be better than what they're doing now, declaring.
I think you see more teams try.
I'm against it.
I do too.
That
15 yards is not that much to
Well,
gain anymore, especially with the officials. All you got to do is get a PI and get
that's
the ball
thing.
back. Like,
that's
it's
the thing.
terrible.
Yeah, it'd be an invite for a PI call or some other penalty or holding. It's too fake. Like, they allow regular onside kicks in college, and these kids are 18 years old. Why are the pros not allowed to do it? Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah,
safety.
it's a normal kickoff. Yeah, but let's worry about the adults when you got the
I know.
Well, it's kind of like you're talking about falsing. I absolutely hate it in baseball when they put the runner on second base at the start of an extra inning. Absolutely hate that.
So you hate the new overtime? In baseball, new extra innings in baseball. You hate the new extra innings in baseball, not ghost runner, but real runner on second. Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I don't at all.
Does Wayne Larrivee hate the pitch clock?
No, I love it.
Okay, so you like the pitch clock.
Yeah.
Is Wayne Larrivee thinking that the Yankees will finally get their next World Championship as the 1 seed in the AL? Is it
I
their
think
year this year?
The Yankees will lose in their first series because their starting pitching is spotty and their bullpen absolutely is, totally unreliable. They will lose in the first round.
Such a true Yankee fan. I love it, Wayne.
You will not be they will whoever is pitching to Judge and Soto will not let them hit, and they'll pitch the rest of the 220 hitters around those guys.
Hey, Wayne, real quick.
There are a bunch of bus drivers around.
Yeah,
the big studs.
What was your take on Jordan Love rocking the Brett Favre jersey coming into
how about
Lambeau
that?
yesterday?
That was great. I thought that was a great tribute. It really was. Tough week for Brett disclosing he has Parkinson's, and it's tough. And I thought Jordan Love, that was great. That kind of puts him in that Packers quarterback club, with Rodgers and Favre and Lynn Dickey and those great quarterbacks.
Tells me we got the right guy, though, right? Like, he gets it. He understands what Green Bay means, the history, all like it shows you got the right guy there right now.
I agree. And you know what? I took a lot from his performance. Yeah, was it tough? Did he throw interceptions? Yes. But boy, the way he kept coming at him. Rust, he shook off the rust and polished the chrome. I mean, we should be set to go for LA now.
Nice. I love it. And what is LaFleur's record in LA? It's like 0-2, right? They've taken 2 trips out there under him. Seems like this trip is a bugaboo trip. I don't know why. It's as bad as going to London.
One time we went out there, this is before the new building, and they weren't even playing in the Coliseum. They're playing at a soccer stadium. The Chargers,
right.
And the Chargers like winless. And the Packers, we go out there on a Friday because, want to get acclimated and everything. Everybody just had a great time. And then they played the effing game and got blown out by the lowly Chargers that day. Oh, my goodness. It was just crazy. So LaFleur's not gone early for another game. Not at all. And he's not going to. And this will be a business trip out to L.A.
All right. Very good, Wayne. A pleasure as always. Thank you, my friend.
Have a good one, guys. Talk to you Friday.
Wayne Larrivee, your voice of the Green Bay Packers and Yankee fan who, poor guy, has been suffering since 2009. The last time his Yankees won their 27th World Championship. They're 15 years out. All right, time now for the only man on the station who can match my own self-righteousness in certainty that my opinions are superior to everyone else. Mike Heller. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm good.
You and I are the equal match.
That is a great intro.
Are we
My
not?
God.
Are we not, Butch, the equal match of sports opinion arrogance? Me and Mike.
Well, Butch, you go ahead and answer that. Would love to get your
Maybe.
opinion.
I'll just go maybe.
Okay.
People bitch about, Heller thinks he's always right. Do you think I would put something out there that I thought I was wrong about?
Right.
I mean, we all have opinions, right? So when I have an opinion, I'm going to form one that I think is correct, and I'm going to argue. Can you convince me?
But can you be
way?
talked to change that?
I think I learn about things and will change my opinion as time goes on. But before something happens, I don't think you can talk me into a different opinion. I'll listen.
Right. It's hard.
Take it into consideration. Yeah.
It's hard to change anyone's mind about anything.
Yeah.
And
I think
men
you have to have an open mind to it.
Well,
like, where do you stand on kickers, Mike?
Well, we're going to get to that. I got a list of
I
questions
jumped
I was
it.
going to
Go ahead.
rat-a-tat. I got a list of rat-a-tat-tats from Mike Keller we can go through here. But first of all, how are your travels back from LA and the Coliseum where you're with the Badgers on Saturday?
Yeah, second best stadium experience I've ever had. Going to the LA Coliseum. Only the Rose Bowl trumps that.
That
stadium experience
old
standpoint.
concrete dump.
Yeah, but
way
there's so
oversized.
much history to it. Yes, but I've seen so many things from there in my lifetime. A bunch of early Super Bowls, Olympic Games, so many things that I have seen from there and never been there.
Wow.
And to look to our broadcast right and see the Olympic flame, the torch lit, and that monolith that is on the right-hand side and the clock in the corner. I grew up as a college football fan, so watching Anthony Davis and O.J. Simpson and all of those games with John McKay and USC from that stadium and being there for the first time, it was super cool.
Yeah, and watching the LA Express against the New Jersey Generals of the USFL back in the day at the Coliseum probably.
We all remember that barn burner from '83.
Not one time.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm glad that you liked it. Yeah, it's a massive stadium. The word Coliseum, it fits for that thing. Built for the Olympics, too big for football. Crowd was very quiet, I thought, on television. How was it in person for the first half?
They got it fired up. I went down on the field with about 8 minutes left in the game, and it was loud on the field.
Okay.
But I think it is one of those crowds that they won't wake up if the team doesn't force them to wake up. And they did by having Wisconsin up 21-10 at the break. And then USC showed up. Their talent level, again, is extraordinary. So we've seen it 2 weeks in a row with Alabama. And then, boy, the talent disparity in college football is equivalent to the talent disparity at the top end of women's college basketball.
Yeah, I would agree.
I know that's a reach of a comparison.
I think it's fair, although I would say that the women's game in college basketball has flattened considerably from 10 years ago when it was UConn, Tennessee, and Stanford, basically.
But you only have 6 teams in women's college basketball lose in general. I mean, you had Ole Miss that lost to Kentucky. Like, you have upsets in college football every weekend.
Yeah, but I think those are with the haves against the haves. And I think the
Kentucky's a have, Mike?
Well, Kentucky talent-wise is a have. Yes.
Does Kentucky have more talent than Wisconsin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sadly, yes.
Not even close.
I can't. I don't.
You can't believe it? Well, you need to be field level with Mike, and he'll point it out to you. Listen to Mike. He knows what he's talking about. That's where Mike and I team up right now.
This is where you
team up to big time the basketball
right
guy.
there. That
yes.
Just pull that, send it to me. I want to play
listen.
I'm not buying that one, Mike. I'm not.
Hey, September.
Maybe I will say I will, and this is where I'll change my opinion because I'm open-minded to having conversations. I'm not, my way is the right way. I'm open-minded. Maybe the last 2 years you might be right. Now I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not talking about over the last decade and a half. I'm talking about
last 2 years.
You sit today, talent you're going to run out on the field.
Kentucky probably has more than Wisconsin, and that's the problem. That's
Kentucky
why
all that well, but I'm fairly certain because I see what Wisconsin kind of doesn't have right now.
And that's why Braylon's text is just so wrong because you just don't see all of it.
So, Czabe, let me jump in on this
Please do.
On the Braylon Allen and their former players. I think this is scripted. Former players of programs
Scripted.
all around the country have done this forever. The coaching staff that recruited them that had success, they go there, then the success falls off, and that coaching staff is let go, and a new staff comes in. And Braylon then stayed, but it was all different. So Braylon wants to complain or to tell the stories about what was going on there last year. The biggest reason he wants to tell the story is that it was totally different than his first years at Wisconsin. And he was recruited by the first staff, and then they didn't win last year. That is a lament that former players of staffs that have been let go have had forever and ever. So if the former players want to complain about the new staff and their lack of success, do it now. Because
get them while they're down. If
or
they're
2 years from now, if it flips,
right,
then they just swallowed that.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a little time here. And I don't know that it's going to happen. I mean, nobody does, right? There's no promise. I think the head coach is really good. I think they have some issues staff-wise. And I think we'll see. I think the offense is a question, and people are going to rip the defense too because they play a different style, with not as many hands on the ground, and they haven't been effective. But it's early, and I'm going to always go back to this, Steve Czabe. If you're going to compete in college athletics, you better compete with your bank account, because if you don't, I don't care what else you do, you can't compete.
Oh, I know. And it's until they get their arms around it, it is a crazy Wild West. Although I love it when UNLV wins with their backup quarterback and puts 59 on the board. When their former guy, who really wasn't that good, goes back to them and says, "Hey, how about some more money here?" They're like, "No, that was not the deal."
Or
dude.
how about the money you told me?
Right, and we don't know, and that's the thing.
Right.
By the way, let me ask: when it comes to talent, let me ask Mr. Septemberfest over there. Were you awake to see the end of the Alabama-Georgia game?
I told you I was. I tweeted something out.
Okay.
Yes, I
All
was.
right, just checking.
But I mean,
So the talent level disparity is so daunting when you watch those games that this kid, Ryan Williams, who caught the game-winning touchdown for Alabama, who pulled a matrix move.
I know. I was at the Wisconsin-Alabama game, unlike somebody talking to me. I saw it firsthand with these two eyes. I sat there and watched Alabama.
This kid made a move like Neo in the Matrix on that play, which was unbelievable.
Here's the thing.
And he's just another guy in a row of shark's teeth of talent that keep regenerating down south at Alabama and Georgia, the likes of which Wisconsin's never had. That's the difference. Am I yelling? I'm yelling.
Sid, the first part of that move was crazy, but that second part was nuts. Like
all of it.
The first spin, but then the second spin he made to go by people. I was like, what? Like, what did he just do?
That was a video game play. It was
like, wow,
extraordinary.
Right,
but yes, I did. And even at the game, I said Alabama just has better players than Wisconsin. Like I saw that firsthand. I'm not disagreeing there.
Let me get to Lambeau Field. Rat-a-tat-tat. Here we go. First of all, scale of 1 to 10. How good was the day that God gave us to play football in Green Bay, Wisconsin?
We had back-to-back.
11.
In LA,
11 out of 10.
Perfect. In Green Bay, that was perfect. Yeah.
All right. Was the comeback lipstick on a pig, or was the pig wearing a dress with a couple of Trulies in her ready to go?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I'm going to straddle that fence. It's a little bit of both. Minnesota, by human nature, took their foot off the pedal, and Green Bay jumped back in. The Packers did a few things in the second half. They hit some bigger plays, and defensively, they got after the quarterback. They get the strip sack. They were a little bit after Darnold in the second. In the first half, he stood back there, and he's shown now he's really good if you give him time. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the league. You give them some time, they're going to be really good. He's one of them, and Green Bay didn't put pressure on him. And then the losers lament without Alexander and Valentine, the secondary. They were overmatched.
Is the defense potentially quite overrated for the Packers?
Green Bay's defense, their inability to put standard pressure on the quarterback, and I say that a week after they had 8 sacks, right? But Rashawn Gary doesn't have one yet. And Lucas Van Ness is
He does actually in the Philly game. That was almost the false start. They didn't call it. In fact, it was a sack that Pro Football Focus did not count as a sack in their grade, which caused people to go, "What are you talking about?" And they said because nobody moved. Remember that play?
Yeah, I don't think statistically, at least
Really?
we were talking about on the pregame show, and
He doesn't have a set. Well, no, he does.
Oh, he does.
Okay.
So he does have.
Well, this is according to Pro Football Reference.
Okay, well, what's interesting is that Pro Football Focus refused to consider that a sack in their grade of him in Brazil.
And
because
ESPN
of the play.
stats have him not having a sack. So there you go with your stats.
There's a variance. Yeah.
Okay, moving right along. Would you cut Narv Dog?
Matt LaFleur gave him the thumbs up of belief in him.
I know that. Would you cut him?
If I'm Brian Gutekunst, I call him in. And he was the first interview yesterday, and I walked in the locker room going, "Well, there's an exit interview." And,
a massive exit interview.
Yeah, I mean, everybody went right there. He was the first interview in the locker room. I think I would have him gone
because he's not cutting it.
He's missed every game.
He's missed every week, even though
one time bailed out by
he
penalty.
didn't miss it in a week ago in Tennessee, but he's missed in every game. And I'd rather play the roulette wheel now and bring in a guy and have somebody go 4 for 4 in a game and maybe get hot and build the confidence. And
who
even
are
if
you
the guy
bringing
goes
in?
3, whoever, Brian.
Okay, so it does. Okay.
Yep. Just bring him in. Start turning the roulette wheel. Bring him in.
All right. Was Matt LaFleur on the wrong on getting that penalty?
Yeah, he can't. He can't do it. I know he was calling a timeout, but the line judge was looking up the sideline when LaFleur was looking at the scoreboard. And then when the lineman turned to look at the line of scrimmage, then LaFleur signals the timeout. He's got to get the officials' attention by running down the sideline. And that's on Matt, because Matt didn't do it right away. He was too busy hung up looking at the scoreboard. He's got to call a timeout regardless right away.
Agreed.
Because he wasted 9 seconds. I believe the play ends at 29, and they get the timeout at 20. Well, he gets the penalty at 20. But the problem was call the timeout right when the play ends.
Can you call a timeout and then throw the challenge, though?
Well, you call the timeout. Yes, you can throw the challenge all the way until the next play starts.
Yeah.
Even with the timeout.
Yes.
That was
correct.
That's what.
The timeout would give you time to stew on it, think about it, see the replays even further.
Yep.
I think part of it
needs to be called at 29, and he could have called it right away. That's the right play. I think he messed up in multiple ways. He owned it in post game.
Yeah. Okay. Are you sold on the Vikes at 4-0? I'm not.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't be.
I think Sam Darnold is nice, but he's having a bit of a honeymoon. He will revert to the back of his baseball card, as they say in baseball, Mikey. He's going to be who he is.
He will if you pressure him.
And they will.
And
they'll get to him eventually.
So far, they haven't found a way. I mean, Green Bay doesn't do it till the game's over.
Yeah.
All right, to baseball we go.
Yeah.
Is the MLB postseason ideal as it currently stands? I think the first round's too short. If you ask me, I don't like it.
The wild card round being best of 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be 1, and I hated that with a passion.
Let's describe our ideal baseball postseason. I'll go first. I want 3 division winners, 1 wild card, which scoops up one team that might have had an exceptional record but just didn't play as good as a division fellow team, and then play best of 5 first round. That's what I think is ideal.
You want a total of 4 teams?
What are okay, so they're not doing it different than that. They are playing a best of 5 in the division round, best of 7 in the league championship.
I don't like the more early. I'll tell you what I want. That's all I want is I want best of 5, 4 teams. First of all, calculating the permutations going into this final weekend was too complicated. It overwhelmed my feeble, mathematically challenged brain.
Well, that's because there was a hurricane.
No, but even if it wasn't, it was confusing. It was confusing with all the different this, that scenarios. That's not healthy, I think.
Yeah, I don't want it to go back, and this is way different. I don't want it to go back to where the Brewers at times won 95 games and didn't make the postseason.
Right.
Under your iteration with just 1 wild card,
that would have happened.
There are 90-win teams that don't make the postseason. So that's what I don't like about it. I do love that they've gone to the best of 3 in the wild card as opposed to the one game. And I love it that it's all in the better seeded city.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't like is the division round being a best of 5. And I know we run into weather
you want
and
that
calendar.
best of 7.
I would love for that to be a 7 and then the league championship 7. But people forget about all these things. We go all the way back to when the Brewers last were in a World Series. They won one postseason series, and it was a best of 5. That put them in the World Series. So you can't long for the days of yore, because in the days of yore, they didn't even do it with the expanded series. They did. The Brewers won a best of 5 in '82 against the California Angels.
Yeah.
And that put them in the World Series.
Right. That's funny.
That's it.
4 teams, best of 5. You're in the World Series. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Do you worry about first inning Freddie if you start him game 1, which would be the assumption?
You're gonna start him, and of course you worry about it. And
would you dare go with an opener gambit to go watch?
I will in game 2. Maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but not
so
in
you
game
wouldn't
1.
you wouldn't play an opener gambit to alleviate the pressure of first inning Freddie, because then the second inning would be his first inning and it's the same thing, and he might be.
That's so.
I'm going to start Freddie against, and what I want is to start Freddie tomorrow afternoon against the New York Mets. So I'm hoping for a split. I do not want the Arizona Diamondbacks coming to Milwaukee.
I agree. Last question, and you've done great on this so far. Last question, though, fill in the blank. If the Brewers, God forbid, don't make it out of the first round, this season will have been insert the blank.
The season will have been awesome, and the postseason sucks.
Not a disaster?
Will the postseason be a disaster if they don't get out of the first round?
Is a disaster if you don't
get out.
Would
the season be a disaster?
No, the season was awesome.
Good. All right. Well, then you enjoy that season that didn't matter.
Here's the only question.
You didn't enjoy the last 6 months?
I did, but you got to.
Been entertained?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Yes.
Hey, I got one question.
But you know what, Mikey? It's like making the putt on a stuffed 8-iron to 4 feet. If you don't make the putt, it feels bad. You don't go, what a great shot. What an easy par. I don't want an easy par. I want to make it to the next round.
Butchie's college basketball, because you, in that scenario, you only think what matters is after Selection Sunday.
Correct, and he's wrong. That being said, Mike, you using your media pass to go to the Brewer game Tuesday?
I am credentialed for the entire postseason home games. Yes.
So are you going?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
On my off day tomorrow, I'll be there.
I'm expecting another tweet from Rosiak coming after you. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Big games bring out big people.
Rosiak and I are pals.
I didn't like that. Show up. Love it.
Listen, Mike and I may fight, but he's on our team. Rosiak better watch his step.
I agree.
If
Rosiak
wants us to be a permanent enemy,
we're all going to show up.
Keep running your mouth,
We're all
Rosiak.
coming for you.
All right, Mike. We'll see you today at noon. Thank you.
Boy, sounds